Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Tweak Week here on Passion for Sound. If you haven't caught the last two videos in Tweak Week, the first one I did was looking at the Burson Audio V7 op amps. The second one was looking at an audiophile fuse. You can find those by clicking on the channel in your browser or your app, your YouTube app, and go through and look at the recent videos. But today in Tweak Week, what we're looking at is the Tellurium Q Black speaker cables. These guys come in at about $325 for a 2.5 meter pair. So they're coming in around about $130 per meter, if you want to look at it that way. And so they're a relatively premium speaker cable. They're nowhere near as much as you can spend on speaker cables. And I thought it would be fun to compare this speaker cable from Tellurium Q up against a set of world's best cables just from Amazon. This is a set of the Canare cable on the inside. The wire on the inside is Canare. And those from memory sit around about $90 to $100 for a similar length and a pair similar to these black Tellurium Q cables. So we're jumping up a big, nearly 3 times the price, maybe it is even 3 times the price from the world's best cables to these. And I was keen to hear what the difference might be. So I've got the world's best cables currently hooked up to my Enlium Amp 23R. That's being driven by the Chord M-Scaler and TT2. And then the Enlium is driving the Harbath P3 ESR XT speakers. So I'm going to take a quick listen with the world's best cables, then flip over to the Telluriums and tell you what I hear. I'll then come back around and tell you a little bit more about these cables because they're a flat design, they're an interesting design. So I'll come back around and talk at the end about what the Tellurium approach is all about, what they focus on, emphasize, what these are made of, etc. Alright, so that's not even close. The difference here is really significant, and I'm probably going to be looking to leave the Tellurium Q Black speaker cables in my system for 2 reasons. One of them is I really enjoy the sound that it delivers. It brings an extra sense of focus. It gives and what I mean by focus is it focuses the sound within the soundstage better. I was listening to Carry Fire by Robert Plant. There's a lot of guitar or stringed instrument work. It's probably actually not a guitar. I think it's an oud or something similar. And the clarity on the strings, the focus of the positioning of that instrument within the soundstage was way, way better from the Tellurium Q Black cable, that's the black version 2, up against those world's best cables. So it's a big, big shift up in terms of the focus and the image. There's also therefore a better sense of transparency and separation in all the sounds. Everything's just cleaner and crisper. Tonality wise, things didn't really shift. So it's not as though we're getting more treble out of it. It's not as though we're getting more emphasis in any particular frequency, but everything's just easy to listen to, easy to access. And I don't mean easier in terms of laid back. I mean, you can hear every individual part of the sound much more clearly, much more easily. And that can come down to lots of different factors. And I'm no physicist, so I'm not going to try and explain exactly what's going on here. But if the signal is being transferred more effectively without any kind of interference along the way, then all the sorts of micro details that help our brains to piece together the sound, they're all going to get through. Whereas if you've got wire that's maybe not quite as good quality, maybe the arrangement of it is creating capacitance or inductance or extra resistance in the cable, then any of those things could theoretically influence the end sound. And so as I said, I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you why the Tellurium Q cables are sounding better. All I know is that they definitely are. Transparency is improved, separation and imaging is improved, tonality is unchanged as it should be. And then what that means is that the overall soundstage, layout, imaging, accessibility, that's all improved. So the end result is just a night and day benefit going to the Tellurium Q over something like the world's best cables. And then for the other reason that I didn't really want to take these out of my system is that I'm not a huge fan of these connectors. The reason I say that, and I could be wrong about what's on the inside here, but these didn't feel very good putting them in and out of the backs of the speakers or the amplifier itself. And what I mean by that is they use a hollow banana plug. It's a banana plug that's split down the middle, it's hollow in the center, and it's split down the middle in such a way that it will compress a little bit as you push it in to the banana plug sockets on the back of your amplifier and or the back of your speaker. Now I'm guessing you can also buy these in other terminations, but this is what I've got here. And these were very, very firm, getting them in the back of the amp and the back of the speaker. And then that's not a problem in itself. Being firm is good. It means you're going to get a really good contact. The bit that I wasn't such a fan of is that as the wire comes into the plug, there's really nothing solid and stable to grab onto as you're pushing it in. So I felt like I wanted to be really, really careful putting it in so I wasn't bending and putting too much strain on the cable itself. So that's probably my one drawback with these cables. I mean, they are also a flat design. You can probably see there, they're not round, they're flat. That's probably being done for the electromagnetic properties of having the wires laid out flat as opposed to bundled into a circular sort of geometry. And so I'm assuming that's to do with how the electromagnetic fields are going to be carried around the cable. and therefore it is a little bit more ergonomically uncomfortable to first set up, to get it to lay how you want it to lay. But because it's speaker cables, it's not like a headphone cable where you're constantly interacting with it. You're going to set this one up once and then leave it. And so it is a little bit more fiddly to set up in the first place. I'm not necessarily a fan of that. But the good news is that once it's in place, you're not going to have to worry about it again. And the sound quality that you get is fantastic. And so the final thing I want to talk about here, and this is something that Tellurium do, and I'm very curious to explore this over the next 3 videos after this one, which is all about Tellurium Q cables. The thing that they focus on, and one of the reasons I was excited to try them out, is that they're very focused on the phase of the signal. So the phase is the precise timing. And I know from previous research and looking into the physics of cables and how the signals transfer through the cables, one of the things that happens is that different frequencies of signal travel at different speeds through the cable and different depths within the cable. And so one thing that I know Tellurium Q do, based on a brief chat that I once had with the owner of Tellurium Q via email, and then also from reading up on their website, one of the things they do is they emphasize keeping the timing accuracy of every part of the signal. And what that allows our brains to do is better perceive the placement of the image, the size of the soundstage, the timbral or tonal characters of the sound. All of that comes from very precise timing information of the transients and the micro details that you hear within the recording that have bounced off walls and stuff like that. If you don't get all those little micro details and all the different frequencies and the transients arriving at exactly the right time, then it just muddies things up a little bit and makes it harder for our brains to put together. You'll still hear great sound, but the difference is you won't get the clarity of imaging, the transparency of tonality, if you like, that you can with a very phase coherent signal. At least that's my understanding of it. And so what I'm hearing listening to the Black 2 from Tellurium Q, that being the speaker cable version, because they have Black 2 in the USB, the speakers, the RCAs, and maybe the power as well, I'm not sure, we'll get to that in a future video. But in all their cables within this Black 2 range, it's emphasizing a natural, true kind of tonal response from your system, not coloring it, not doing anything to enhance it in any way, but just kind of getting out of the way. And that's definitely what I'm hearing in the Black 2 speaker cable. It's a lovely addition to my system. I imagine it will be a lovely addition to most systems because, as I said, the tonality is no different from what I heard through the Canare cable. But what I was getting was more clarity, more image focus, more soundstage size, etc. And so one of the keys to take away from this, people often say the Canare cable or the Megami cable, that's what they use in studios, that's all you need. And sure, that is all you need. It's a good enough cable. There's nothing wrong with the world's best cable, the Canare version that I've got at least. But the thing that you'll find if you talk to engineers and sound engineers, if you watch documentaries of them working, they're very rarely looking for the best possible sound. They're looking for getting the sound into their system. And so brands like Canare, Megami, etc., they've no doubt got great deals on long runs of cables that studios need when they're wiring up. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best cable on the planet. What that means is that it was the most cost-effective, efficient, affordable, and available cables for them to use in the studio. And indeed, if you do look around and hunt around, you'll find that there are other bespoke studios focused on extreme recording quality that are using other brands. Possibly there are studios out there using Tellurium Q. I know that there are studios out there using brands like Analysis Plus. And so this idea that every cable that's not a Canare or a World's Best cable is messing with the signal that the studio intended, that's not really very accurate. Yes, some studios use those cables, but not all of them do. And then on top of that, this cable is not messing with tonality. It's not messing with the emphasis of the music in any way. So it's not like a producer would hear it through this cable and say, that's not what I intended. More what it's doing is getting out of the way and letting the maximum quality version of that signal, whatever it was recorded with in terms of cables and equipment, this is actually letting the maximum version of that get from your amplifier to your speakers based on what I'm hearing. Now, I say the maximum version of it, there's probably more expensive cables that might be even better still, but at the price you're spending here, you're getting a really nice upgrade in all the ways that I think matter over something like that World's Best cable. And so the takeaway from this is that if you're looking for speaker cables for your system, or you're wanting to upgrade your system and looking for a good way to upgrade it, I do think that after things like amplifiers, DACs, preamps, streamers, the main component devices, the next best thing I think you can upgrade in a system are the analog audio cables. So whether that's headphone cables, analog interconnects, or the speaker cables, they're a big, big influence on the sound because the signal is traveling directly through them. And so that cable is acting as a filter one way or another. And therefore, the less it's altering the sound, in my opinion, the better it is. And that's what I'm hearing from the Tellurium Q. I got more of the music and nothing else. And so I'm going to keep this video pretty short. There's not a huge amount to say, but I hope you found it useful and informative. And of course, if you have, please hit the like button and subscribe and ring the notification bell if you haven't already. Remember to jump over to the channel page, check out the previous Tweak Week videos if you haven't seen those yet. And of course, watch out for the upcoming Tweak Week videos. We've got the Tellurium Q Black version 2 RCA cables. We've got the power cable, and I'm forgetting one, the USB cable as well. So watch out for those videos. But for now, let me leave the music. So happy listening, be kind to each other, and I'll see you here next time on Passion for Sound.